married, not dead.
I'm glad you shared that Mayim Bialik op-ed. That thing was very good.
She's getting a lot of blowback for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Tons of it, because she didn't hate enough. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. She didn't hate it. But there are people that are on the other side of that are like, there should be no inference on what's appropriate, regardless of how you're dressed. But then we hear the flip side of that, which is, at what point can you walk up to a police officer or to a person dressed as a police officer and say, I need help? What, you're inferring that I'm a police officer just because I'm in this outfit?
Right. You weren't you weren't a uniform, So what is your uniform?
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you on that, man. And I think
because there are some people that say, okay, so what? I'm dressed like I'm dressed scantily, or maybe I'm really sick. Like that's where she got the hate for her comments is, okay, great. You're not as pretty as me. So what? I get abused now?
Yeah. And
I get abused because I'm pretty. That's not fair.
Yeah. And I think if anyone says that, which they did, I'm sure it's just, they didn't read it, And I think we talked about it earlier. It's like, yeah, you get out of it sometimes what you want to get out of it. Like people come in
her article.
I think some people, well, hers to me was like, it was enlightening. It was so straightforward to me, because, you guys know me well enough to know that I'm not coming in with emotion. Right. So that makes me different sometimes when I'm reading things or, seeing things where a lot of people come to the table with emotion.
Right. You think it first rationally and then reflectively. Sure.
Exactly. So people come to it with that emotion of they hate Harvey Weinstein. They hate the idea of this abuse. And again, the fact that she didn't come out and spew hate. She did say that, any actions like that are totally inappropriate and inexcusable. I mean, she said that. But she also said that, some people need to also look at themselves, and you have to hold yourself to a degree accountable if you put yourself in that situation. I mean, you guys saw this thing with Steven Seagal, right?
Yep.
Actress went to his house for a private, come on now, private session. She was smart enough to take somebody, which was excellent. That's smart, very smart. But how many before her didn't take someone? And how many before her were actually willing to do whatever Steven Seagal or the next person asked them to do to get the part? Right? And that's the idea of this uniform. It's like there's so many other people, either men or women, wearing the uniform and playing the part. So now if you go into a situation and you're wearing the uniform, but you're not willing to play the part, how am I supposed to know that? You know what I'm saying? Like I've been through 15 women in the past hour. They were all good. They were game to get down. And now you come in and you're not game, but you're wearing the same uniform. I'm confused. That's the part where I think it gets muddied. And some of this stuff is straight up, nasty. You got people groping, other folks. But when you got a guy who's just saying, hey, why don't you come hang out with me? Why don't you, come do some things? That's what the Steven Seagal thing was, right? He didn't actually do anything to her. But the irony of it all is we have the vice president who's moralizing on a daily basis under a president who on tape has admitted to doing the same things. Oh, yeah.
that all these guys have been doing, whether it be Ben Affleck, Harvey Weinstein,
the pussy,
Steven Seagal,
honestly, that whole,
you name it. Our president
march was about
will
that.
Grab you by the pussy.
The whole women's march was about this subject.
Yeah, I'd like to see,
and they're moralizing to us. Right. So it's a weird, strange world that we live in. And here's the thing. Here's why, Nick. I'll say two things, and then Jason, I know you got something you want to say. I'll push back a little bit because the casting couch is this pervasive thing. Now, the reason it exists is because it works, right? The girl who's willing to go there ends up getting the part. And if that weren't the case, then no one would do it.
Right.
But on the flip side, that doesn't make it good. Like should just women be in charge? Would there be a casting couch for men if that happened? It would just is there something in people in general that when they have power, they need these sort of levers in order to make tough decisions? I don't know, but I know that you say 15 people come in and they're all ready to get down and this one isn't. It's confusing. He shouldn't be handling business like that in the first place.
I think that's what Mayim is saying, right? She's like, and that's the thing. It's like, you shouldn't be doing, it's inexcusable, right? The behavior is not something that we want to celebrate. It's something that, in many cases is a criminal offense. But she's also saying, you got to recognize the culture that you're walking into. Right? This is, it may not be right, but it's the culture. So protect yourself. Be mindful of your surroundings. Have self-worth. Like all this type of stuff. I think that's what she's basically trying to say. Again, it's not excusable. It's not okay, but it is happening. It is the culture. Mm-hmm. Be wary of it and do what's necessary to protect yourself from it. I think that's her point, and I think it's a great point. But again, she's being, I won't even say ostracized from the certain parts of the female community, but she's being lambasted for not just being angry, just taking sides. That's the part that bothers me.
Yes. But I will say this. These are allegations.
That's right.
So another thing that's happening with this culture is we've already pinned these people as guilty. Now we know a little bit about how Harvey worked with his staff. He's mean. He's a bully. But we need to let the process play out for everybody involved.
Sure. I agree that everyone. I agree everyone's innocent until proven guilty, right? But also, I kind of feel like some of what I'm hearing from you guys is that you're a little frustrated that victims are coming forward and saying that #MeToo. Like, if people truly do feel like they were abused or assaulted, that it's not okay for them to speak up. Maybe they've been, for every one person that maybe is malicious and using the hashtag or whatever, maybe there's one person that isn't. I don't know.
Yeah, so my comment about the #MeToo was really, this is a call to women. And the point is that this is abuse, period, right? This is, like Chris was mentioning, also an abuse of power. This doesn't just happen to women.
I haven't only seen women speaking up.
Right, but my point is that
James Vanderbeek. If we're talking about celebrities, James Vanderbeek has spoken up.
Right. What I'm saying is that it was a call.
Or whatever.
It was a call to women. Men are speaking up, but that specifically was a call out to women. It was a request for women to put #MeToo on their. I just read something that says 500,000 women, millions of women. You're not seeing millions of people. That's not what's being advertised here, regardless of who's actually hashtagging. My concern is that we're making this a woman versus man thing. We're creating another line of division. Where that's not helpful.
That division's always been there.
Well, I'm saying, but it's not helpful to the conversation.
We do the same with black and white. This is exactly the conversation white men have with each other.
Well, right, and this is
about every black movement and all the shit in the media. Like, this is us being wrong. This is bullshit. You stop whining.
And I've had the same discussion as well when it came up to the Black Lives Matter thing. I personally said that I thought that was this is the same deal. It's like, that's not the conversation. That's not the conversation we need to have. It needs to be about, back to what Chris was saying, it's about the abuse of power. We should not allow this as a society, as a culture, period. We shouldn't allow, police officers to shoot unarmed people regardless of their color. So for me, that was one of the issues, again, with that whole movement, was that it created a division. It created a lack of, like you're saying, an understanding of why it's, why is it Black Lives Matter? Why is it... Just say that you're infringing upon the civil rights of American citizens. Come at it like that. So right, I agree,
right, which most people just can't do.
Yeah, and that's that was my issue with this, is that it's bigger than the gender. This is, again, these are issues that we collectively need to address, and we can address this together. Like, that's the idea. What is as a father of a son and daughters, what is my charge? what should I be doing to protect them from situations like those and to make sure that they're not putting other people in situations like those? Let's have a collective conversation and not just keep attacking people or even attacking each other across gender lines. That's my issue with some of this stuff.
It is an issue, but I'll say this, and I really do. I want Brian's take on this, and it's something that I thought. I was listening to this great podcast. It's like an unreleased episode. What was it called? Married Not Dead. Yeah, huh? Yeah, I was listening to one of their unreleased episodes. Fucking brilliant. Yeah. But I don't know. So I was thinking about everything that's coming. Look, and this isn't to say we deserve it or we just should shut up and take it. But along that line, and this is why I bring up all the black versus white stuff, is and I've had this comment, or I made this comment, and I've had this conversation with a lot of white people. That at some point there's a lot of unnecessary, unfair, unkind, unconstitutional backlash towards white people. But it's not us, but look, when you oppress a population of people, it's going to backfire in your face. And I'm not sure that's not what's happening. I am certain that's what's happening with the women's stuff. So as a white male who's been on the other side and kind of known a lot of people who couldn't understand it at all and had to try to think from where they were coming from with like the kind of the black thing, it kind of prepared me for the woman thing to say, yeah, look, if you oppress a people, you're going to take a lot of bullshit. Some of it you got to swallow. And you just do. Look, the woman has been oppressed, at least in written history, always. Before that, not so much. We can speculate, but at least in written history, the woman has always been second chair.
Yeah, it's not property.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's an element when a group rises to equalize itself. The group that has oppressed it is going to take a lot of unnecessary flack. But that's the way the shit works. That's the cost of oppression. White people will suffer for what the white people before them did for years and years because, well, they fucked up about 400 years of existence for another person. For women, it's been always. It's not, it's like permanent, and even on the black side, on every color side. So, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's bullshit, and we got to teach and craft against it, but it's like that anyways.
Yeah, but so I want to touch on that teach part, because at what point do we reteach how to even approach a woman? Because I mentioned Ayn Rand 2 weeks ago. Women hate her, but feminists do. A lot of they're torn. Some feminists love her because her books have strong female protagonists, and then other feminists hate her because the sex that's in her book always has the man taking charge, which they don't like. So I was raised to think,
well, that's how it happens.
That's what I'm saying. I was raised to think that women, for the most part, prefer a man who's decisive and is strong enough and has the courage to make his move, to have that opening conversation, to get to know someone better. And this, of course, in no way means your opening move should be sexual assault. I'm saying that I think there's a chilling effect that's going on in the culture where a guy has to be really careful about how he approaches a woman. I got in trouble. Right. I got in trouble before in the past because I had a female colleague that we were having a disagreement over an account, and there was a chauvinist kind of guy who had invited from the account that had invited her onto his boat to talk about business. And I asked this colleague who I'd worked with for many years, I said, do you think that he asked you on the boat because you're pretty? And there was a massive backlash for that comment. And I meant it in the most benign way possible.
Was she pretty?
She's pretty. So I meant it as a friend talking to a friend. Do you think that he really wants to do business with you and us? Or do you think you're being invited on this boat because you're a beautiful woman? And I had to apologize. I had to make an official apology because of that comment. She was deeply offended by the comment.
Did you get the account?
We did not.
I'm just curious.
Apology retracted.
Yeah, but well, here's the thing. I've gotten to know that guy a lot better, and he's what we would call a traditional man, ironically enough. You know, he's probably like the characters that Ayn Rand writes, the male characters that she writes in her books, for example, which no longer fit the paradigm today. Those kind of guys will get your ass in jail or your reputation ruined. And you have to guard your reputation with everything today. So I think what are we teaching our kids? How would we teach our kids to approach a woman that we desire? And so one, that initial conversation, but two, how does sex happen now? You know, how do we get to that place where you're feeling like you can be the dominant, if that's the role you want to play, if you're a masculine man and you want to be the dominant in a sexual situation with a type A personality, let's say female?
I don't know why we've done that, where we have to create a dominant and a submissive, and kind of denote that up front.
There doesn't have to be, but I think that...
No, I know, but it's very popular.
I'm going back to, it's popular because it's the traditional man. It's our fathers, Jason. That's what I'm bringing up. I'm saying the traditional man is used to a female-male role that is changing.
I guess, yeah, in the masses, it seems like it's changed a long time ago for me. I mean, I haven't always been, I haven't been attracted maybe to submissive females, so I don't know. I don't necessarily know what that's like, or when I hear it, it feels new. It's kind of surprising, but maybe it is. But for the masses, sure. Yeah, I'll take that.
Well, I'm not even sure, that's the question I have sometimes about the masses is like, is there really a phase change, a game shift happening with the masses, or is it just something that we're seeing in the media in certain places in the country? Like if you could call the certain places progressive, right? So you got your LA, you got your San Francisco, you got your New York City, maybe Washington, D.C., possibly Miami, maybe. But some of these, these centers, around the country, like what's happening in Wyoming? What are the women thinking in Idaho? Mm-hmm. What's their sentiment? I'm really curious about that. Like how much is changing really, even just this
in
just
the United States?
Yeah. I'm really curious about that. Is it really changing that much? Proud Boys. There you go. That's what I'm saying. Like the Proud Boys, they're doing their thing and they probably have a huge following and the women are following them too. And, so how much of this is really just noise? So if you want to live in a metropolitan city, then yeah, maybe you need to straighten up and fly right and do something a little bit different, because now we're going to tweet about you, if you even think about asking us out on a date when we were supposed to have an interview. If you're saying, hey, let's meet at the bar instead of the office, well, now that must mean that you want something from me and I'm going to put you on blast. That might be happening
the
there.
put you on blast part is the new part of the culture that frustrates me, not the coming out of people using the Me Too hashtag. It's the culture of it's the put you on blast press release culture. And here's the crazy thing, fellas. don't you know that 80% of all marriages start at the workplace? But it's the one place where you got to be on your P's and Q's about how you approach a woman you might want a relationship with, or a man you might want a relationship with if you're a woman.
Dude, I have a very solid line about, like, I don't date. I actually don't really befriend a lot of people that I work with.
Right.
There's been a few, but there's just because of, I just always feel like friendship clouds your judgment. And it's hard because I work at a smaller place now, and like, I really like these people I work with, and I am becoming friends with some of them, but it's hard for me to break that rule, because after years and years and years of this, so one thing that kind of is interesting to me is that, like, I'm raising my daughter, right? I'm raising my son. Mm-hmm. And, something I think Jason said a little while ago, and it may have been Nick, is kind of how we're raising our kids or whatever. And like, I'm raising my daughter to not have, like, she doesn't, the way that my wife and I have a relationship, she doesn't see me as the dominant in a relationship and treat my wife that way. So she has a way to think of how a woman should be treated by a husband. But that's not every household, right?
That's right.
So, that's right. At what point do I have to be like, hey, let me have a talk with you? Right. Let me talk to you about, what you're going to run into. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to begin to have that conversation. Just like having to have a conversation with my oldest son about racism. Mm-hmm. Hey, you don't act like that over here, but look, you're going to run into people like this, and this is why I think they are this way, and this is why you shouldn't act this way. Like, you have to counter program.
My wife's intense, man, about that. I think she started telling my oldest daughter about boys when she was like 12 or 13. Like, and I can't be in the room for it because I just don't have the stomach for it. But she'll be like, listen, all they want you to do is put their penis in your mouth. That's all they want. And and she was so grossed out by it at a young age that was effective. That was her birds and the bees talk. Like, listen, they'll tell you anything they have to tell you to put their penis in your mouth. Don't let them do it.
She used mouth?
Yeah.
She chose mouth instead of...
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but it's both of those things, right? It's they want their penis in your holes, I guess. I don't know how else you want to say it, Jason.
Yeah, but it's the gross factor. It's the gag
it's the gross factor.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's been very effective. It's just like it's kind of like you guys have been in my house and you see like the liquor cabinet. I don't worry about the liquor because I don't glorify it. You see what I mean? Like, it's not a secret. Yeah. It's not hidden. It's not this thing that's locked away in a case that creates a mystery. It's out every day, and I don't really, nothing happens. It just collects dust for the most part, unless we throw a gathering or people come over. So because there's nothing.
Unless Brian and Jason come over.
Break that shit out. Yeah. But
they used to bring their own, and they drink all of yours and all theirs.
Exactly. So,
what Sal is doing with, your eldest daughter is very similar to what my parents did with me when it came to racism. Mm-hmm. It was this, like, it was an ever present thing, for me. Like, I had to watch movies about it, documentaries about it. I read books about it. Like, I was one of those few kids in school. Like, I had the African American history book. Like, my parents were like, okay, you're going to go read what you read in school, but you're also going to read this. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to be wary of certain things. And, that was basically it, to protect me from, not to fear it. Because the majority of my friends were white, it was more just recognize it. Because if and when it happens, it's ugly and it can be dangerous. Right? So the same thing with your eldest daughter. Like, this situation can be ugly and very dangerous.
Very effective.
So,
man.
So it was very, very effective for me.
There's some other teaching that it can give there that's probably unintended.
Yeah, potentially.
Maybe
but,
so,
yeah, but for me,
but so far, just look at the outcome. The outcome has been positive. So let me ask you this, Nick, since you talking about what your dad and your parents taught you, what are the top 3 things you think your dad taught you about being a man?
About me being a man. So, I would probably have to put most of that in the context, or some of that in the context of how to treat women. So the first one is basically he put my mom on a pedestal. Mm-hmm. So basically that's how I see my role. So one is like, so as far as being on a pedestal, it's like, her needs are very important, if not one of the most important things. It also taught me that, so because I'm very much like my dad, my wife is a very emotional person. Mm-hmm. So my job was always to be the balance. So before I got married, my interactions with women, what I learned was that women are very emotional. Mm-hmm. Right. So again, I'm saying what I learned, because there could be some people out here like, no, women aren't just emotional. It's guys too. And blah, blah, blah. You can't stereotype us, whatever. What I learned in my interactions was that women were very emotional. So as a man, my job was to help balance that. So you bring, maybe logic, reason, calm things down, always be even keel. Right. Like as a man, that was my job, is to keep things even and move things forward. So that was kind of like the interaction with women.
So you were taught to be not emotional, to balance out the emotional creature.
Exactly. Because basically not to put my emotions, not to stir things up even more, make things worse, or make things more confusing by bringing my emotions into it, balance all that stuff out. And I think that's one of the reasons why my relationship with my wife works so well, is because we balance each other. So one of the unintended consequences of that was that then I now need, or have needed, someone to balance me, mm-hmm. which is again why my wife and I work so well together, is that because I've always taken that position, she's able to bring the heart to it and let me see that side, or let me feel that side a little bit more, so that I have a little bit of that more for myself. But that's the first thing, to balance her out, put her on a pedestal. So that other pedestal part is try to do things to reduce her burden, so that it alleviates some of that emotional stuff. So like for my wife, I do little stuff like, do the dishes. I mean, she normally does the dishes, but if she's having a bad day, I'm doing the dishes. I'm cooking. I'm taking the kids to bed. I'm making sure she had her coffee if she forgot to make her coffee in the morning. All these little things, so that it doesn't mount up for her.
Right.
So I used to see my dad do that stuff all the time. Like he would go out and he would know that, he was out all night. He had to work. Well, he's coming home. He's bringing flowers to the house to let her know that, he thought about her. He's probably bringing food home that she likes, some dessert. He bought a bottle of wine at some point. He probably brought that out. He could have bought it weeks ago, but brought it out and was like, here, all these little things just to balance the stressors of the day, so that didn't impact her. So I would just throw those kind of, I guess that's potentially 2 things, alleviating the small burdens and also being a balance to the emotion.
That's good. I'm going to circle back with you in a second, but Brian, I'm curious, what were some of the things your dad taught you about being a man that you might hang on to actually and pass down to your youngest and your oldest?
Yeah, so it's always difficult with me, right? Because
that's why I'm so interested in it.
Yeah, so it's almost like the through what I'll say is respect women, children, and because I don't feel like my father did. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's kind of like through dealing with his alcoholism, that's ultimately, what the number one thing is I learned, other than, hey, don't be like him, when I grow up, mm-hmm. is respect your demons. Interesting. Because every man has a demon. It doesn't matter if it's jacking off in a potted plant,
aloe plants,
right?
Seriously, or if it's whatever your demon is. Like if sex is your demon, respect it. If alcohol is your demon, respect it. If drugs are your demon, if work is your demon, respect it, man. Understand that how it influences everything you do and how it negatively and can impact everything and everyone you're in contact with. And so, you know, that's kind of a deeper lesson. But I mean, ultimately, if I had to sum it up in one thing that I learned, not three, one thing.
Thank you.
That would be it.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's
the best
very
part
good.
about that lesson. The best part about that lesson for me, just listening, is it you learned it, but it wasn't a lesson that you were taught intentionally. You amassed it from your experience, and that's. Just take a moment to say, well done. Well,
I appreciate that.
It's.
I would rather he just told me that shit to me.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Instead of taking you through it, right?
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like being put through that wall, but whatever.
Right.
Yep.
You know, the impact of it is
Impact
has stuck with you. Has stuck with you throughout. Pun unintended. Sorry, but no. Thank you for that, because I think that's very true. I remember a time in my early 20s when I was writing songs just prolifically. They were all driven through sadness, and I knew it. I consciously knew that I needed.
Generally,
I consciously knew that I needed to be in sad situations in order to get my best work out. From the pen to the pad, out of my brain and into music and into melody. And that would put me in these really, you mentioned how your demons affect everything you do. Well, I would go out and find relationships that I could destroy. And it was almost getting habitual, where I could go out and do something terrible to myself or someone else, have this bad feeling about it. And then I knew I could write something powerful and emotive because of it, all the while destroying my own life and possibilities and setting myself back. So it was this really weird thing where I said, you know what? I have to learn to be the disciplined artist, not the sad artist. I can't be in love with being sad, because that will be the end of me sooner or later. Because the ante just keeps getting higher and higher. You keep having to do bigger things to get the art out, and you don't want to do that. Jason, what about you? You got a couple of things that you think your dad bestowed upon you that you'll pass down to your son?
I do. Maybe I'll try to loop back to those for you. But you kind of brought something up that, with your destructive for the sake of art thing, because I think I would have said that at one time too. But I found probably, I don't know if it's a real trait yet. I'm working on that, but it might be a trait that I might have that with or without the art. I had a discussion with a friend not that long ago that some of us, me, but I'm hoping there's others. I'm sure there are others, but maybe I have a sadness tank, and if it gets too empty, that I subconsciously have to fill it up. And I've done that subconsciously through many relationships. I think, yeah, even to some degree with my current one, where I may cause a problem. I don't know, inadvertently, but create that situation for myself. So whether it's art or just maybe your natural personality, to say, do I have an expected level of misery? Am I meeting that? And I think maybe typically I've always met that. As fucked up as that is, I think that's a big thing for me. So that. But
it's one of those old rules, Jason. How does it go? It goes, the worst thing that can happen is that you get a good result doing the wrong thing. And that's what happened. I was able to write great songs the wrong way. And so you just keep going back to the well.
Yeah.
See, I thought what immediately hit my head was Vince Young.
Ex-quarterback for the Titans and Eagles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Packers.
Sorry.
No, it's good. But, so what my father...
Hold on. I was going to say, how do we just leave that now? So now that you've had this potential revelation, now what?
Is that for me or for Jason?
For Jason.
Okay.
Because this is now. Like yours, Chris, you kind of recognized it a while ago. But yeah, Jason, like,
right.
What now? Where do you go from here? If that's, that's potentially tearing you apart, maybe tearing others apart around you. Is there a next step after this realization? Have you thought that far?
Yeah, no.
Maybe not. Again, something hits you.
Thinking about it. How do you switch that? How do you reverse that? Because some of it, yeah, it's learned. It's a learned behavior. Like I don't think this. I don't want to boast about my own family, but I come from a very loving, caring family that does a lot of good. But I don't know if I come from happy people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I do. I don't know. Maybe there's a little Irish in there. I don't know, but maybe just not terribly happy. And sometimes it gets into that where I learn to create that tank of I need a little bit of misery.
Mm-hmm.
I need to bitch about how I don't feel good or whine. It could be considered whining, this or that, or life's not going right. And you just kind of create that. So, the first step is you're aware of it. And then the next step is you say, how do I defeat everything I've been taught? And that's tough, especially.
I'm just going to say that, you mentioning this, again, I was listening to this really good podcast the other day, and these guys were talking about Hugh Hefner. Oh, yeah, that was MND. But we're talking to Hugh, and we had a really good conversation about that. But, yeah, you came from a dark place, basically putting everything that Hugh did, in this basically saying that everything he did, everything he was based on darkness, based on sadness. And, people who are successful tend to have things that they're covering up that are just sad. And, it's just like, wow, like why everything from such a dark place? But now I see why. Yeah. It's almost like a reflection in my view, my limited view. It looks like a reflection of what you've got going on. Onto a projection, onto someone else.
That's fairly fair. But I do see, and so in maybe in listening to this. So here's something, and I think we're all saying it, and this is terribly therapeutic. Just go ahead and for whatever value it is, when you talk to each other, when men get together and they really talk to each other, especially if they record it, even if you don't make a podcast. I would encourage somebody to record it and share it with each other. Mm-hmm. And as narcissistic as that seems, when you start listening back to that, you're like, wow. And it doesn't seem to stop. So you find yourself listening to yourself, but you're just learning. You just say, it's like, having a therapist or whatever. Like you start reflecting on each other, reflecting on yourselves. And it's an amazing thing men haven't done historically. Is gotten together like this.
We don't talk. Yeah.
We don't talk. And there's so much in there. I mean,
we need to make that. We need to make that club we talked about a few episodes ago, Jason.
That's right.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
We need to roll that out.
So, yes, some of that may be there, Nick, but I do find, regardless, that, and it's not in looking back, like I maybe wanted to pull some of my judgment back on people creating things out of loss and pain, because that does seem to be the biggest reason they're doing that. But that's not bad necessarily. That's not always necessarily bad. Hugh created something because of the worst thing he'd ever experienced happened to him.
But this is where I would turn it. And then this is like Brian. Like everything Brian does with his family, and you can, again, Brian, you tell me if I'm wrong, but where I'm feeling it, what I'm sensing is it isn't because of the pain of his childhood. It is what he's learned from the pain. He's moved beyond that, and has created a positive environment, right? So this
happiness is a choice,
right? So he's chosen that now, right? So everything he does isn't based on pain. It isn't the result of pain. It isn't the result of sadness. He has turned it. Like I said, he's made the choice to turn that into something positive. Now, everything he does from now on is coming from a positive spirit.
I'm not sure.
And that's my point.
You're not wrong. And that's a sunny way to look at it, but I'll go ahead and give you the McConnell way to look at it.
Right.
So that is correct. There's goodness in it, but it's still constantly done to try to make up for that pain.
No, and I totally disagree. That's where I'm at. It's like he's not making up for anything. You know what I'm saying? Brian's not making up
that pain a long time ago.
He's not making up for anything. He's not still in pain, dude. He's moved past it. He has become his own man. It's like the root of the tree might have been. Listen, the root of the tree might have been pain.
Brian, you sure
but
about
it
that?
dropped the seed.
Am I sure that I've moved past the pain?
Yeah, let me ask you this. Let me balance this question out. Chris, you ever get over being poor when you're a kid?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one.
Because I don't think you have. I mean, I'm gonna say this as an observer. I appreciate your success, but it's based on your poverty.
I wasn't super poor. I wasn't like refugee camp
whatever
poor.
You were was a poor that affected you permanently.
But it's a very good point. It's an interesting question because while I can be past it, at the same time, I lived it. So I know the condition I don't want to be in. So it's more like it's not that I'm not over it. It's that I know what's possible if you don't do certain things, right? So that may be what Nick is saying, and that may be what Brian is saying is, look, it's not that he's forgetting that all these things happen to him. He's not forgetting because he brings them up. He talks about them. Right. There's pain there. There's real pain, but he understands what he needs to do to not have that history repeat itself.
Yep. So what he does isn't based on pain. He's not covering up, with the actions that he's taking.
It's based on pain, but it doesn't have to be pushed forward through just pain. The root of it is always there. Like when
I don't really know if you guys. I mean, I thought you guys knew me better than this. Like when I'm in pain, dude, that shit's shut down, and I keep it in.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
That's more. No, I'm just talking about me specifically. Right, I mean, you're bringing up me as an example, and you're saying that me discussing these things, me putting these things out there are in way that I'm still in pain because of it. It kind of feels that way. So what I'm saying is that I'm not, because I'm actually talking about it.
Yep.
Because,
and I think that's wonderful, but it's not at all what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're consciously in pain. And I'm not saying you're currently in pain. I'm saying that the root of your personality is based in a pain. The root of Chris's personality, like the biggest driving force in his life, literally was that situation that he was in that he hated so much. So whether it sticks with you as pain, whether Hugh Hefner found himself 40 years later going, he wasn't acting out of pain. I'm just saying, and this is why I had to correct it and saying, it's okay. It's not that bad. It doesn't like make a negative to what he did. Mm-hmm. Now, Hughes, I'm bringing in the question a little bit because it did good and bad. It gave the women power to say, fuck you, I'll do whatever I want with my body. But it also did, let's be honest, we can bring this full circle to Harvey and you know what, I don't even want to do that. I might think he's an asshole, but there's no gavel been hit yet. So whoever is the male piece of shit that objectifies women, like there's some blame to Hugh Hefner, fucking period. And it's perpetuated to a mass result of, now it may equal out in 50 or 100 years because of also what he did, but we're still in the balance there. So that's
much of
really
it depends on the woman and the viewer and how they use information. Right. Some women would say being allowed to be in a magazine naked is empowering.
There's something,
and we see a lot of women do nude covers for that reason, or pregnant nude covers for that reason.
I don't praise him.
And then we see other women that say, "Oh my God, you're allowing men to objectify us for money." me. And and I think the difference with Hugh is, and this is, I think, to Jason's point, actually, his didn't happen in childhood. His happened in adulthood. And there was an actual event that created a catalyst for his being a man about town. And that's where it gets a little bit different. And just to
get very much different.
Yeah. And just to clarify for me, I really don't think it was the lack of stuff as a kid or being, lower middle class or lower class. You know what it really was? The driving force behind my personality, because I actually agree with that. I think you form your personality very young. It was this idea that I didn't want to let my dad down. So if you had asked me, what is something that my dad passed on to me about being a man? It's that you hold on to your pride, you do a great job, and you don't let people emasculate you. And that is kind of the thing. So it's this idea of go in the world and be the best version of yourself you can be. And if you don't do that, then that's shameful.
So I got a question.
And that shame, that shame is a big deal. I've shown my dad songs where he's like, this is not a good song. And I just fucking throw it away. Like, it's just like offhand. Dad didn't like it. It's not good. Period.
All right, Nick.
Yeah.
I got something there, but go ahead.
Yeah. So my question for more of a general comment or general question on, what it means to be a man. So, for Brian's, it sounds more like that's just, it's a good thing you learn about being a person. Like you're looking at your demons, whether you're a man or a woman, that seems like a good thing. Chris, what you're mentioning, it sounds like whether you were his son or his daughter, minus the emasculation, because that would make no sense, son or daughter, it sounds like that's what he would teach either. Is it possible to really say what it means to be a man out of the context of your relationship with a woman? Is everything else just a character trait that's not gender specific?
But Chris, before you answer that, can you go further? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, so basically the question is that can you actually say, like, he's asking, what does it mean to be a man? And you kind of heard my comments about, it's in context of having a relationship with a woman. If you just say, yeah, my dad taught me to be the best version of myself, is that a man thing? Or is that just a person thing? It means like, don't let anybody take you for granted. Oh, is that a man thing or is that just a person thing? Respect your demons. Is that a man thing or just a person thing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it when possible?
We say that though, it's not like, it's people go, oh, well, you shouldn't teach, this is what a man is, but that's just what humans get tangled in our words all the time. And really we're just saying, just be the best version of you.
Well, I know. That's what I'm saying.
I will jump in there, Nick, before you get started, because to clarify, to answer your question, Nick, I think there is a manly pride. I think the pride my dad was talking about is the pride we teach our sons. I think this hero pride. You're the hero. You're the provider. You should be respected. You should want to save the day. And now I wonder, is that the kind of thing you want to teach to your son? Do you want to teach your son that he's the hero, that he can be, there's this manly pride where you don't get treated a certain way. It's kind of like a guy knows not to call another man a bitch in front of other men, because there's a chance you might die on the spot in a fight.
Or unless you're trying to emasculate this dude.
But I'm saying that's the point. That's the point. I mean, right. we know that as men, whereas women call each other bitches all the time. And there doesn't have to be a lot of recourse physically for that. If you try to emasculate a man in front of another man, you have potentially a fight to the death on your hands.
Yeah.
And so
jump back to the hero thing,
how long do we go where we try to teach our sons that they are actually not bigger, stronger, faster, and more aggressive than the opposite sex. Because I think that might be where we're headed.
Yeah, but jump back to the hero thing. I think that to me might hit the nail on the head with, really, what does it mean, or what has it meant to be a man? Because that's some of the game shift we're seeing in our media, right? We've already talked about Wonder Woman. We talked about Star Wars. We're talking about these heroines, right? You're seeing these heroes come out that are not men. This is different. This is a game changer. But even in my description of what my father taught me, if you just think back on it, basically that's what he was asking me, not asking me, that's what he was showing me, teaching me to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I was the hero for, again, with respect to the relationship with women, I was always their hero. I was dude stuck in friend zone because I wasn't hitting on girls like that. Mm-hmm. But right. I was the guy who was always there to listen and then to, logic, reason, rationale. Let's work through this, move forward. The hero, that was my role. And then again, same thing with, the little things that my dad would bring home. There was an emotional hero, but also I think for a lot of men, there's the hero factor of, like you mentioned, the breadwinner. You're the hero. You're making sure that we have a roof over our heads and food on the table. Mm-hmm. Why did men for so long seem to want to, or seem to covet, or seem to control this idea of like the handyman, mm-hmm. right? Because something broke. Well, the hero had to fix it.
Right.
So maybe that's it. You know what I'm saying? So that's it, is that, for the longest time, even now, we're taught to be the hero. And that's why I think, again, subconsciously, this idea of the handshake, you got to have a strong handshake, dude.
Right.
You're a hero.
But we're in this culture where there may be an attempt to bury ancient truths. And maybe it's time to move on from those ancient truths, because now we have genetics and genetic modification coming around the corner. We have AI. We have the possibility for this is not kooky talk, the honest possibility for cyborgs in the next 50 years, where it may not be true that Brian is just going to be stronger physically than his wife. Maybe she might have a bionic arm. You know what I mean? So shit might go.
She could just start doing CrossFit, homie.
Man, I don't know. She works out more than I do.
See,
right, right. But even as much as she works out, which is really true, I would still put my money on you, Brian, in an arm wrestling match, just because of your genetics. So the thing is,
real quick one. I got a real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So quick survey. Who fixes stuff in your houses? When something breaks,
I fix it.
Okay, Brian.
Oh, me.
Yeah, I fix stuff in my house.
I teach my son to fix stuff too.
Right. Okay. So
I think that's because I'm more analytical. It's not because I think that she's
it has nothing.
Not able to fix things.
No, and me either. I don't. My wife. If something's broken, there's an expectation that I'm going to work to fix it. And if I can't fix it, I'm the guy calling the warranty company to try to get this stuff fixed. If there's a technician that comes over to the house, well, I'm the one who's going to be here when the tech comes. Now, there's other reasons for that as well, where
bitches are helpless. We get it. Yeah, no, man, I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is that even in our relationships, right, when it comes to fixing things that are broken, we take on the hero role, not because we think less of our wives or even that our wives think less of themselves. It's just a role that we play.
Yeah.
So
it's because of it's what we value or put value to. Like when Chris says, like bigger, stronger, faster, and, related that to male, the answer to that is yes. The answer to that is yes. There is no equivocation in that. Even if you can find it individually as a group, it is a yes. They are. But what are you putting value to? Does that mean that they can't be smarter, cleverer, wittier, more ingenious? Nope. It just means that the physicality is taken over there. And because historically, and we come from the ape warrior to me fight and take care of family, fix shit. You know what I mean? Like that. So
Apes
because
talk
of
like
that,
that all the time.
they do.
So you hear that shit.
Rock heavy overhead, smash turtle,
I mean,
make
it's
it
kind of
soup.
how Woody Harrelson approached this latest role. But no, I'm just saying we come from that animalistic thinking. So it.
But we are animals, Jason. So that's what I'm trying to say. There's a Cold War going on right now where we're trying to decide, are human beings smart enough to transcend nature, the hierarchical nature of the world? We live in a hierarchical world, and every animal but us is willing to accept it. Like every animal accepts their hierarchy except for us. There is a silverback gorilla for a reason.
Yeah, but we have to transcend it. But we only transcend it by saying it's okay to accept these things, and it's okay to value these things and give them to one party. Just find the value in yourself on the other side of that. In
real life, Jason, does Ice Cube really knock out Debo? Because in real life, Debo beats everybody's ass, right? That's what I'm saying. There's a hierarchical nature to this stuff. The person who can be the most violent or the toughest or the strongest usually is running shit. Doesn't mean they're the smartest.
No. Yo, Q hit him with a brick, dude.
Yeah.
I understand how it works in the movies. I've been in enough real fights to tell you it really didn't go down like that.
No. Wait. It doesn't go down like that, but
I hit people with shit.
Yeah, of course you got. Yeah, I know.
And when you're smaller, it does work like that. Because when you're the smaller guy, you grab what you can.
What you can.
Right. Hold on.
And that's
only in the movies does a smaller guy get to grab the brick, but the big guy doesn't seem to want the brick. No, the big guy grabs the brick too, and hits you much harder.
Wait.
Look. As a small guy, let me explain it to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
The small guy spotted the brick first.
That's right. That's right. He was looking for the brick when the big guy started talking shit.
Because let me tell you, I'm looking for the weapon in every situation.
Right. Big guy overestimated
Anytime somebody
himself.
starts to get
Or he
anytime somebody
around.
gets aggressive to me, I'm looking for the fucking weapon to use.
And this is where the women can step in. And this is why it doesn't matter. And this is something I learned from the smaller guy, that maybe the smaller, skinnier guy, scrawny at one point, is that maybe the brick isn't around. Maybe there's not a win in sight.
Yeah, it seems like it's never around when you need it.
Right. It's never around when you need it. So you learn to adapt. You learn to be smarter and wittier, and you talk your way out of it. And then you find a shovel when this dude's coming out of the fucking grocery store with his mom, and you fix it that way.
This is very specific,
Crap.
Well, that went dark.
Yes, it was.
This is how you take this.
Is that an omission? We're gonna have to submit this.
We might have to do a quick edit.
Chris, please edit at 1:20:06.
I remember getting off a school bus, and this little kid knew he was going to have to fight a bigger kid, and this was like a video game nerd, and he went in for a dragon punch. Are you good? Missed. Complete air. Tried a real dragon punch in a real fight. He figured that was his best shot.
How you gonna call me out like that?
Man, he got hit so many times on the way down from that dragon punch. I felt terrible for him, man.
That's awful. He should have gone with M. Bison.
No, I broke the fight up, man. He walked home. I said, man, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that again. There's a reason. There's a reason why there's these tropes. The nerd, the bully trope.
Yeah.
It exists. It's just real. It happens. And what we're trying to say is, as intelligent people, how do we transcend that? Because there's a Cold War between hierarchy, like power. We're talking about power, this entire traditional man, power, this entire episode, this entire conversation.
Different things.
If I'm Donald Trump and I own a pageant, I get to go backstage and see the women naked. Yeah. Because I own it and they can't stop me and I'm powerful. If I'm Harvey, you're either going to come here or not going to be in my movie. Right. So this is about those classic tropes. And do we fall into a world where hierarchy rules? Or do we go to a world where we can somehow transcend it? But I don't know how you transcend it, because once somebody's willing to be more violent than you, then that's already a problem.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to transcend it, which is one of my challenges with some of the stuff that's happening right now. It's just some of it is noise, Some of it's, like I said, divisive in nature. So yeah, what are we doing here? That's the big question. What are we doing? And I think for us, like Jason was saying, 4 guys having a conversation, or outside of this, guys having a conversation, how are you going to move forward, right? How are you going to teach your kids to not put other people in these situations? How are you going to teach your kids not to be in a situation like that? And then if you have to, look at yourself, look at yourself and say, hey, am I doing this stuff to other people? Mm-hmm. And it's a moral thing. You got to say, well, like you're saying, Chris, if some people want to be violent, if I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm saying, am I doing this? And the answer is yes, but I don't care. Well, I'm not going anywhere. Right. What I'm saying? That's not changing anything. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that we're moving to a place where we're going to transcend it, which is why right now what's happening in the media, the news, and all this, it's a lot of noise. And I'm curious, what's the positive thing that's going to come out of it? I don't know. It's not clear to me yet.
Hopefully a more fair society. But that makes me think, Jason, what would you say? Now, you just talked about waiting till a kid comes out with his mom at the grocery store and hitting them with a shovel, which is a really amazing visual. What would you say is your biggest mistake? If you had to pick out one thing you've done in your life that you think about, that you're like, man, I wish I could take that back, what would it be? It could be anything.
It's not an event.
It doesn't have to be.
No. So I'll combine that with what I was just thinking about with Nick's comment and transcendence. So one thing I got from my father, it was it's such a dangerous quality. It's wonderful. It's tragic all at the same time. Is this unadulterated ability to kind of look at yourself. My mother might have had something to do with this too. I don't know. I'll have to spend a little more time on that. But just to reflect, and I've said it kind of jokingly, but why do I suck? But to realize, and I think this is how we transcend it, is we realize that like we all suck. We all suck. Like when we think about our interactions with people throughout history or just individually, for as many good things as we've done, just think how many things were selfish and self-serving and were just for you and for vanity, for ego, to make up for pain, whether it's success and like because like Chris, you were talking about your dad and like if you didn't hit like this certain mark, there was shame in that, right?
Yeah,
so think about that. I think about for my kids, because there's something you can make a winner out of that. You make a winner out of shame, but you can, and it's kind of awful, right? But at the same time, you can make a loser out of not shaming. Like I never had the shame, not ever. So winning wasn't as important to me. I didn't put the value on it, and to some degree, I wish I would have, but it's kind of a teeter-totter. The worst thing I ever do in my life is to question my value. The best thing that I do in this world is to question my value.
So does that make you a bad person that does good things? Or are you a good person that does bad things?
I have no fucking idea.
He's figuring it out.
You tell me when this story ends.
I think that with my dad, the thing that happened with me too was there was high expectations. And I've spent a lot of years fighting that. So I would rebel almost subconsciously against the expectations by doing really poorly in school and in other ways as well, behaviorally, etc. because it was this way to say, no, I'm not going to live up to these expectations. These expectations are unreasonable. These expectations are unfair. I can't be better than I am. I am just this. And then there was this moment where he wrote me a letter when I was 17, still in 10th grade, by the way. And I think I was 17. It was just an honest letter that he left right on my bedside table as I'd overslept for school again. And it was just so honest and to the point that I couldn't deny the truth in it. And I really kind of decided at that moment, what would it take to actually improve upon myself? Is improvement possible? And it took me a long time to get there because you had built up 17, 18 years of terrible habits. You'd put yourself for 17, 18 years around people who feed those bad habits. So how do you dispel these people from your life? It's very difficult socially, right? Because these people are people you see every day. How do you wake up one day and say, I never want to see you again? You can't do it. So that was part of that too for me. It was so the shame part almost came second. It was this idea of there's an expectation in front of me, and there's this person out there that believes I can be better than I am, yet I continue to let that person down and prove that person wrong by being basically a POS. So that's a piece of shit. So that's where that comes from. Brian, what about you?
Nobody thought you meant point of sale.
Yeah, yes, for being a point of sale. Any other POS acronyms out there? Brian, what is your biggest mistake? Thing you could take back?
I made it.
Penis on snatch. Penis on snatch.
No, seriously. I think about this a lot. I don't think I've made it yet.
So you think it's coming ahead of you?
So to me, is it
expected?
Is it earlier tonight? Like when I went to Kroger's and my wife threw on me at 9:00 at night, or actually, I'm sorry, 8:48, because I remember the fucking time exactly, that we didn't have any milk for the next day because she didn't pick any up. And I went to Kroger's and I picked up the 1% instead of the 2%. Was that the biggest mistake? I don't know. Because you know what? I'm pretty fucking happy with where I am in my life. And so any decision I've made up to this point has led me to here. So I'm okay with it. But it's that fear. I do have a phobia or a fear of of making that.
Interesting.
That ultimate mistake. I don't think I've made it because Lord knows I've made a lot of fucking mistakes. But some of what some people think are my worst mistakes have brought me some of my biggest joys. Right. So, I wouldn't know my wife if I hadn't made all the mistakes that I made up to the point. If I had gone straight to college outside of high school. If, I wouldn't have met my wife, so I wouldn't have these two wonderful, children that she bore. Right. If I didn't have a first wife, I wouldn't have Jackson. So, I don't know, man. I mean, everybody likes to dwell on the mistakes, but maybe that's just me and, kind of what we were talking about earlier. I like to look at a little bit of the positive. To me, it's that mistake. I don't know. I haven't made that. I won't know what my biggest mistake is until it's, I guess Jason kind of said earlier, till, he's almost, he won't know if he lived a fruitful, meaningful life until the very end. Well,
I hope it doesn't come to that. I honestly think that if you have to wait till your last breath to decide if you had a fruitful or meaningful life, it probably means that you're questioning it. And I believe in that too. I have a friend that believes there are no mistakes. The mistakes aren't true.
That could totally be it.
Yeah, that you're just living your life. What our greatest
mistake is, but yeah, you're just living your life because so many mistakes, and it's hard to say because we rationalize.
Right, but I'm saying exactly because our brains are powerful things, Jason. We can rationalize and tell ourselves we didn't make a mistake, but there's going to be times where you realize that you could have had a better outcome and done something. For example, if you're going to do something one way or the other, let's say one way or the other, you are going to get your master's degree. and you could have got your master's degree for $20,000, but instead you got it for $60,000. Well, that's kind of binary, right? And you can rationalize and say, well, I paid the $60,000, but it's okay because it put me in this situation and took me to life. No, you probably could have got to the same place paying the $20,000.
You mean because you waited
or just for whatever reason you didn't apply for that loan you should have got. You didn't take.
Okay, I mean,
maybe you learned a valuable lesson that saved you money down the road. You don't know what choices you make. I mean, yeah, if you had made the right choice up front, well, maybe it led you down a path that would have made you, because you didn't learn that lesson that, I should make sure that I'm more thorough, in finding these things out or things like that. I don't know.
Those are the kind of things that can get you divorced. I'm with you, but it's the kind of things that can ruin your life. Like you can say, man, I didn't show up for work today and I got fired, but it's okay because it was meant to be. It almost takes you out. It makes you into this person who's not an active actor in their own life. Like fate is just taking me down the line. Like I'm late and now my life is great because that was a job I shouldn't have had anyway. No, you keep losing jobs. Your wife leaves you or, like you're broke. I'm meant to be broke. No, you're not.
You're talking about being a loser. Like you're talking about being intentional loser.
No, not intentional. This stuff, people rationalize these behaviors all the time.
No. They're unintentionally doing it, but they're an intentional loser. Like I don't want to lump those two things together.
Yeah, like, I don't think that you could have my type of outlook if you don't learn from mistakes.
Yeah, no,
that's correct.
Yeah,
like I'm okay with having this type of outlook on life and on creating and making mistakes because I tend to learn from them. If I didn't learn from them and I kept making the same fucking mistake over and over and over and over and over again, well, then I would have a different perspective. I would be more of a woe is me kind of person. So
your philosophy would change completely if you didn't learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Because usually you pick a philosophy that's defensible, you hold on to it, and you live your life by it for life, regardless of what you do. Nick, what do you think? What's your biggest mistake?
Yeah, I can't answer it. I don't think I have one. So I'm just going to have to be in that kind of same boat. That's not a question that I can answer.
Is it because you're mistake free or because you just don't believe in mistakes?
Well, I don't know what my biggest mistake is.
Does not compute.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. That's where I'm at, dude. Like that's probably what was said in my brain. Like that does not compute. Is
there anything that you think about that you say, man, I wish I could have done this better or differently?
I mean, are you talking about like a regret?
Yeah. Mistake, regret, whatever. Yeah, we can.
Regrets.
Right.
No regrets.
Right.
Regrets. Yeah, and a lot of people don't believe in regrets either. They're like, well, we moved on. But here's what I find that's interesting about people that say that. People that say I don't believe in regrets, they're usually saying it because they're like, well, I fucked up. But right. It's spilled milk. It's water in the bridge. So they're in the philosophy. They're admitting that they have a regret in the philosophy.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I wouldn't say. So yeah, I don't have a biggest mistake. I don't have any real regrets. If I were to look back and just look at pivot periods that I could have had in my life, one of the things that I wish that I had known or believed at a younger age is that I could live a very happy and fruitful life by exploring and improving upon my gifts and the things that I enjoyed, right, as opposed to the traditional model of, college, get a job, work for someone else, that whole deal. Mm-hmm. Because I enjoyed music as a kid, but that was never something that I was told that I could actually pursue as not just a career, but, as my life. Even when I got into the fitness game, a lot of people around me were saying, well, that's kind of a temporary stopover, right? Like, mm-hmm. Nick, you went to Vanderbilt, why are you trying to be a personal trainer?
Right.
Like that doesn't make sense. Like, well, what if that's the way I want my life to be? I could do this, right? But no, it's that seed of no, you're supposed to go work for somebody in a corporation. You're supposed to use this engineering degree to do . So I wish that I had known earlier what they're teaching now, right? Like this idea of people, either dropping out of college or, never going to college, but pursuing a very specific skill set that they have, creating a sense of community around an idea, and then building upon that to make themselves a good life, because it's not about, for me, it's not about the money, right? It's about you're doing the thing that you were potentially meant to do, like the gifts that you were given. Yeah, the gifts that you were given. Yeah, you're now doing that. So it's not again, it wasn't a mistake of mine. I didn't know any better. It isn't necessarily a regret because, it's not something I really think about. Again, it's more now that I know this, now that I have this knowledge, now I can work towards that. But it's just in a different time. So yeah, I would have liked to have known that earlier. I mean, another one, like Jason was saying, we all suck. I tend to not agree that we all suck. I tend to agree that there are things that you call it modern society teaches us that we need to unlearn. So like these things about vanity and selfishness, we do a lot of things that are vain and selfish that prevent us from giving to ourselves properly, giving to other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm shedding as much as I can some of these selfish behaviors that I have learned over time. And some of them are really simple. Some of them might be more challenging. Some of the stuff that, that I'm doing now is like, I give as much as possible. Every opportunity that I see to give, I'm on it, where sometimes it was more, it might've been like, no, I got to keep this for myself in order to move forward. No, it's like, no, man, you have an opportunity, you take it, and I just to let you guys know, it's one of the reasons, like if I have cash on me, there's a guarantee. And this is something I feel like the universe is just doing for me. If I have cash on me, which I don't often have, someone will ask me for cash. And my rule is, if they ask for it, then I give it to them. Because that must have been the reason why I was carrying the cash in the first place. It's like,
hey, Nick.
Right?
Hey, Nick.
I hear you.
Can I $5?
Yeah, if I had the cash on me, I'd give it to you. But honestly, dude, it's like that. And I think it's a mindset.
Born 60 years prior, you'd just be broke all the time.
Yeah. And honestly, but that's the thing about that is that, having gone through recently, watching the homegoing for Dick Gregory, that's one of the things I learned about his life. He would borrow money from you to give to somebody else. Like he was that selfless, like his mortgage was paid by friends and family of his because he was so giving, like he devoted his life to that oftentimes he was lacking, and I found that, I'm not necessarily prepared to put myself or my family in that lacking position.
Well, you don't want to put others in that position. Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, there's a lot of giving that I can do that I have not been doing. And basically, again, that's one of the things I'm learning now that it would have been nice to learn earlier is that some of the selfishness, the vanity, the things that, keep me from sharing my gifts or giving my gifts to the world, I'm now shedding some of those. So
there's a great website called Charity Navigator. I believe it's what it's called. And it helps you pick the best kind of charities because you can type the charity in and find out if it's legitimate, like your money actually works. Because I do think there are caveats to that approach, Nick. But I remember being downtown and giving $5 to a homeless pregnant woman who I found out later was not at all pregnant, but had a faux belly on, and I probably gave her $5 to get high. And so you can pick and choose programs that would help take that person off the street or help them get food or balance out their life.
Fuck that person. You're not taking, that's a con artist.
More than just be conned on the street through pity.
I know that. Somebody tried to catch me the other day. I was with my son. He tried to con me. He didn't get any cash from me. It's not that silly. I'm not that crazy with my money.
Okay.
But I will say this is that one of the things that I've learned through this process, if you will, is that, my goal is to put positive energy into the world through the giving. So it's not just about like charities and things. When I'm at the grocery store, I will say, if I go to the grocery store once a week, then potentially 2 to 3 times a week, I pay for the person that's behind me. And my wife does the same thing where she'll go get her coffee in the morning and she'll pay for the person's meal who's behind her. So the person that's behind us may not be lacking in any significant way. Sometimes they are, and you can tell that, but sometimes they're not. And it's just the idea of putting something positive, because maybe they'll pay that forward and maybe the next person will pay it forward and the next person. So it's really about this cascading light that you're putting out into the world. And that's what I try to do.
I love that. So, I love that idea of just kind of making the world a better place and surprising people with generosity. That's great.
I'm going to counter that, not because to kind of take down what you said, because I think that's maybe how it should be, but to my maybe my personality defect is that maybe I think what I've lacked is the opposite of what you said, and I should have done a better job in that, in all aspects of my life. Like my father taught me wonderfully to take care of the woman in my life and the children, but he didn't teach me to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he should have. There's still a population of people that you either want to attract, or once you have attracted them, you want to keep interested. And oddly enough, ironically enough, to everything that we're saying about being a good person, the difference between the sexes kind of means that you have to establish yourself, especially as a male, when we're talking to men here. And I don't know how I'm going to teach this to my son, so I'm not specifically giving any advice whatsoever, but that maybe you do establish them, or that you do give to them the sense that they establish themselves as a ruling male, because it turns out that may be exactly what they're attracted to, and it keeps it going. It's that catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, there's that selfishness and that manhood there, but you know what? What nobody wants to say there is, that turns me on, and it keeps me right here.
Yeah. I don't like the doctrine of the loss of self, because without care for yourself, you can't care for others. But there is a balance to that, where you ride a line of vanity and arrogance that's dangerous to others. Let's quickly talk about Audible. So today's episode is brought to you by Audible, and I'm going to let you in on how to get a free audiobook and 30-day free trial from Audible. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/MND podcast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/MND podcast. Stop the podcast right now. Just go and do that now, because you're going to get a free audiobook. You're going to find out how great the service is. If you love listening to podcasts, you will also love listening to audiobooks, and you'll be able to get one for free right away. The book I'm really interested in getting right now is for all you out there that love relationship talk, love what we do here on MND. Go get Esther Perel's new book, State of Affairs, Rethinking Infidelity. I have not read it yet, but I cannot wait to consume it. I think it's going to be a fantastic one. Again, audibletrial.com/MND podcast for your free 30-day trial and audiobook from Audible. All right. So before we wrap up, does anyone have any closing thoughts or comments on the conversation?
Yeah, I got something for you.
Give it. Rub it. Take it. Hump it.
Yeah, I'm a man. But I got no clue what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen.
It's a moving target, my brother.
Yeah, I agree. There's this idea that popped in my head when Brian told me he has this philosophy of no mistakes, which reminded me of my friend telling me the same thing about 2 months ago. And I thought, what are some of your other philosophies that we have that someone might, well, that you say to yourself, am I right or am I crazy? So maybe we can get in on that. Maybe we'll touch in on that next week.
Get back to that.
Because I would love Jason's answer to what is something that you believe in philosophically where you wake up and you question yourself, am I right or am I crazy?
Sure. Ask the guy who is not sure whether he sucks or not. It's good.
What is it that you suck, Jason?
We'll get to that.
Right, yeah. Next time.
This is self-discovery. When four men get together and they just start talking about their shit, it's amazing. It's fucking amazing what you can figure out. I don't care about anybody else that's listening. What I'm getting from
you don't mean that literally. We care. We care.
Maybe not. There's a chance that there's one guy in this group that doesn't give a fuck about you. So just understand that I'm reaping the benefits here. I hope it's good for everybody else.
Absolutely. All right. So on that note, you've been listening to the Married Not Dead podcast. To find show notes, read excellent blog posts, and find links to all of the products or services suggested during the show, please visit our blog at marriednotdead.org. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast tribe on the Apple Podcast app or the podcast app of your choice. After you subscribe, please don't forget to rate and review. We are, of course, on social media. You can find us and follow us. Please, we would love that on Twitter or Instagram at _married-not-dead. And of course on Facebook by searching for the Married Not Dead podcast page. Thank you to everyone that has been leaving comments lately on the Facebook page. We love you for it. Keep that up. Until next time, on behalf of Nicholas Buggs, Brian Comer, and Jason McConnell, I'm Chris Barkley. See you next week. Good night.
All I want to say is that they don't really care about us.
Good
night, fellas.
It's more Michael Jackson Olympics. You're trying to pop it off.
That's right.
All right. Let's go watch this Titans game.
I DVR'd it.
All right, fellas.
All right.
Yeah,
Bye.
I did too.
Later. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/MND podcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from, including one of my personal favorites, How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia by Mohsen Hamid. Do not judge this book by its title. The ending had me crying in the middle of a 4-hour flight to Los Angeles. It's made even better by Mohsen's narration, and you can download How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia or any other audiobook of your choice today. Again, for listeners of the Married Not Dead podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So, to download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/MND podcast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/MND podcast to get your free audiobook today. You will not regret it.